All right, hey seniors, how's it going? Let's get crack-a-lackin' here. We need to keep rolling with book number 11 of Beowulf, starting on page 15. So if you remember, book 10, Beowulf has laid a trap for Grendel, has sworn that he's going to beat Grendel in hand-to-hand combat, and so now Grendel's like sneaking his way up to Heorot, and that's where book 11 picks up. Grendel walks in, literally rips the door off the hinges, and sees Beowulf and all his men laying there, and he thinks he's going to have himself a grand old feast. So he grabs the first guy who's asleep, rips him in half, literally bites into his bone frame. So grabs the guy, like takes a big old chunk out of him, and then snaps him in half, and is like eating every piece of him, just eats every piece that he can get his hands on. And he's like, oh, that was a pretty good appetizer. All right, now for the main course. And he goes after Beowulf himself. Well, Beowulf, remember, he's stripped down naked. He's not wearing any clothes. He doesn't even have a sword. So here he is, like some ancient Greek hero, wrestling Grendel. And Grendel realizes right away in book 11 that he's got a problem. Because here's this dude got a hold of his hand, and he says, this is the strongest guy that I've ever seen in my life. And so, excuse me. So he takes Grendel's fingers and like bends them back and snaps them. And he's got a hold of Grendel's hand. And remembering what he said, that he wouldn't use any weapons or shields or anything like that, that he'd beat Grendel in hand-to-hand combat, he reaches up and grabs Grendel by the shoulder. And now the only thought that Grendel has in his mind is getting away, is escape. He's howling and screaming in pain. And this wakes everybody up. All of Beowulf's men who are sleeping there in Heorot with him, all of the North Danes who are out sleeping in their own homes. Everybody wakes up, and they hear this, what's going on up in Heorot. And that ends book 11. Book 12 starts with all of Beowulf's men. They've like picking up their swords and their spears, and they're trying to hack and slash at Grendel. But no weapons touch this guy. Nothing works. And so Beowulf is kind of left to his own. In the middle of page 17, it says, the grisly monster suffered hurt of body. In his shoulder a fearful wound began to show. The sinews sprang apart, the bone frame cracked asunder. Fame of the battle was given to Beowulf. Grendel must flee away beneath the fen fells, sick unto death, go seek out his dwelling, reft of his comfort. Beowulf literally rips the guy's arm off. Seriously, like grabs his arm, grabs him by the shoulder, and just rips his whole arm off. Gives whole new meaning to the phrase, I'm going to rip your arm off and beat you to death with it. So Grendel goes running off, and Beowulf is left standing there naked holding this guy's arm. So the battle ends, and book 13 begins. In the morning, everybody goes up to Heorot. They're expecting to see Beowulf and all of his men dead. But there's Beowulf standing there holding this guy's arm as a trophy. And so they hop on their horses and they follow the blood trail. And in book 13, it tells us that Grendel died. Bottom of page 17. Grendel's life ending seemed no matter for sorrow to any of those that scanned the way he trod after his undoing, how in weariness of heart, worsted in the fight, hunted forth and nigh unto death, he bare himself away then in flight to the mere of the Knickers. Its flood there was seething with gore, its dread coil of waters all mingled with hot blood, the deep welled with the blood of the slaughter. After that, bereft of joys, he laid down his life, his heathen soul doomed to death in his fen shelter, where hell took him. So Grendel gets his arm ripped off, and basically he bleeds to death. And they see him there in his den, dead. So they go riding back all joyful and happy, and on their way back they start telling the story of this guy named Sigmund. And this is one of those old English ideals that you see. Even in celebration, they're talking about death. They're talking about the deaths of Sigmund and Heremod, I believe it is. So, even in victory, they're talking about death. In Book 14, they go back up to Heorot, and that ends Book 13. Page 19, Book 14 starts. And here, they give Beowulf, they start to give Beowulf a whole bunch of stuff. Hrothgar says, I will love thee, Beowulf, best of men, as a son in my heart. Hold thou close henceforth this new kinship. No lack shall be thine of things worth having in the world, that I have at my bidding. So, Hrothgar is ready to reward Beowulf for everything that he's done. Beowulf says, I did exactly what I said I was going to do. I came here. I didn't owe you anything. I didn't use any weapons. And I killed this monster that has been terrorizing you for so long. That was my job. And so they take Grendel's arm and they hang it up in Heorot as a trophy, as a symbol of what Beowulf has done. Page 20, Book 15. Then they decorate Heorot. They get it all like beautifully made up, well, as best as they can at this point, because it's kind of trashed from Grendel ruling the place for 12 years and from Beowulf fighting Grendel. It's like the only thing they say that is intact is the roof. All of the walls are like have holes in them and things are wrecked and everything. But they hold a feast, and then they start giving Beowulf rewards for what he's done. A golden standard, a broidered war banner, a helmet and byrnie, a mighty treasure sword, full many saw borne before the warrior. And then a helmet, about the helmet's crown, a raised ridge without, wound with small rods, maintained a guard for the head, that the file-furnished blades, hard of temper, might not harm it in their boldness. And then he bade 8 steeds, had 8 horses, their bridles heavy with gold, be led indoors. So 8 more horses, and then Hrothgar gives to Beowulf his own saddle that he used to use when he was young, and he would go charging into battle on his own. And then he gives him more treasures. And that's where Book 15 ends. So Beowulf has won the day. Not only has he gained fame and renown, but he's also been made rich, and the king has made him as a prince, like his own son. And I guess slaying monsters is a good gig if you can get it. So that takes care of Book 11 through 15, guys. We'll pick up Book 16 later on.